Okay, so we're on the home stretch here. We got all our equipment stood up and installed. In our last episode, you saw us standing that tank up there, but we've got everything piped and we've got all the condensate lines run. The electricians are bringing in power right there on that pipe. There'll be a disconnect on the wall there for the compressor, and then they got to put a little bit of 110 volt to this desiccant dryer. Okay, so we'll start over on this side. This is where the air gets made, obviously, by the compressor. We've got just a simple flex hose. I had these made up at the hose man. They're just king nipples with a double band clamp on them. And that's the nice Parker high temperature and high pressure hose. And then we got a union there so they can change out the hose. And then we come up to their first manifold. And then they come here and we do a T and then a shut-off valve here, and this takes us into our tank. That's a feeder for the tank. And then, but you notice we got a T here, and then we run up, and that's a bypass valve. So that valve stays off. This valve stays on. And there's another valve. Let's follow the pipe all the way around. And there's another valve right up there. Let's zoom in on that. Right there you got a valve, and that's coming out of the tank, so that valve stays on. So everything's got to go through the tank to get back to that main line, unless we want to bypass. If we bypass and we want to work on the tank and still supply the shop with air, we turn that valve off, we turn that valve off, and then we turn that valve on, and we magically bypass the tank, and we can work on the float, work on whatever on the tank without disturbing the shop. We can still get the shop air. It doesn't have the good buffer like it usually has, but it does have, the shop will have air. Let's go around to the other side and we'll look at what we did with the dryer. And then out of there we come back to this main line, we continue the loop, and then we're going to come over to here. We're going to an isolation valve, a bypass valve, and another isolation valve, and that's going down to the dryer. So if the dryer's in service, left valve open, center valve closed, right valve open, and we're drying. Should the dryer need service, left valve off, right valve off, center valve open to create a bypass, and then we take the dryer out of service. We can work on it without disturbing the shop. So those are the two isolations. One's to isolate the tank, and the other's to isolate the dryer. And out of the dryer there, we hook back around, and then we're just going to a general purpose filter that's always there, which is the blue filter you see up there on top. And it's always going to go through there no matter what. So if they go into bypass, they still have a little bit of filtration going into the house. And there's a union there where they can work on it, and it's set up with an auto drain. Let's talk about condensate. First of all, you got a little electric drain right here, and we got a condensate line here. You've got another drain on this, which is a toilet bowl float type. This one is timed, so it burps off at very specific intervals. This one's only when it gets a little bit of water in it, and this one's only when it gets water in it. So we got 3/8 polyethylene hoses, and they just go down and go into the tank. So we're bringing 3 condensate lines in there. And the other side of the tank, we pick up another couple. What we got down here is you got the float type drain, which is the yellow. It works like a toilet float, and it actuates an actual air cylinder that opens a valve there that lets out the condensate where that black T is. And then we put a manual drain in here just to keep people honest, so they can drain the tank manually if they need to. So either way, they've got a way to drain. And then we got it set down pretty sturdy. You know, it's on a good mount, so it doesn't bounce around or someone step on it and bust the pipe or whatever. So we put a floor mount on there so that thing's got a nice sturdy mount. And then this top pipe you see here, this is bypass. For those float types to work, it has to have bypass air, which means above the water level. So that just goes to tank. All right. So that's another drain, and from there we pick up another condensate hose, and now we got a bundle of them going, and we bring those up, tie wrap to the pipe, and we brought those into an air manifold. That's just a screen on top. This is an open pipe here. We got other condensate coming in here. One from our blue filter, one from the house drain here. This is going to drain the house. And then over there on the compressor, that's got a condensate line. So all those condensates all have to come together. We bring them all together in that manifold right there. And after that manifold fills, it'll drain. And it drains down into this. And what this does is this is a water and oil separator. Basically, it's got a series of filters inside, and it absorbs the oil and separates the oil from the water. And it's got a life expectancy of 3,000 operating hours, as you see there. And this is not electric; it's just standalone. And what comes out into this bucket is clean water that they can just dump out in a planter. It's devoid of oil and things like that. So that is a separator for their condensate. They could take that bucket there and just, I don't know, take it into the office and make coffee with it or something. So that's the condensate extractor and cleaner. All right, so that's where all the condensate goes. You know, there's a lot of work running all this tubing around here and getting all these pipes and hoses where they belong. You know. But our tank's solid and sealed up. Our dryer's solid and sealed up. We're connected to the house lines up there. And that runs off to the rest of the building. And then their paint department's going in over here. We've got more, we brought dryers out, or excuse me, regulators out to the front of the booths in each workstation. So next to each workstation there's a regulator gauge combo and a place for them to attach their hoses. And then back behind the unit we've got point of use dryers that just simply hang on the airline. So these are the airlines we ran in to the building. 2-inch main line up there, 3/4 inch drop, isolation valve, and then a pair of dryers there. That's a water separator and an oil coalescing filter, auto drains, and just a little bit of hose run down so they don't blow on someone's head if they're walking by. So those all have the toilet float type drains. And these are by DeVilbiss. So each booth has a pair of filters. Okay, so these booths are pretty much ready to run. We're just waiting on a little bit of power. Here's the 3 control panels for the spray booths. So each booth is capable of operating independently. That's why we did 3 airlines down to them. Okay, guys. Hope you enjoyed the installation of the industrial airline system. And I'll give you kind of an overview of the whole thing here and how it laid in there after we stood that tank up. That's the whole system sitting on that footprint right there. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.